Good morning, my esteemed chairs, fellow researchers, and distinguished delegates of the MENACOMM conference. My name is Suryateja Jonathan Ganda, representing Bina Nusantara University, Indonesia. Today, we are going to talk about the dilemma that is keeping educators around the world awake at night. We all know generative AI is powerful, but is it making our students smarter or is it making them passive? I am proud to present our research, supervised by Ms. Jacqueline Harefa, titled Unlocking Student Autonomy: The Indirect Positive Effect of Generative AI Use on Academic Performance via Self-Regulated Learning. Let's begin with the context. Right now, there's a widespread academic panic that relying on tools like ChatGPT or Gemini will cause a student's standard cognitive skills to atrophy. Educators fear that AI disrupts the core process of self-regulated learning. The urgency here is palpable. Students are adopting Gen AI rapidly, but institutions, especially in the Indonesian higher education context, are lagging behind without clear empirical data or ethical guidelines. Our research fills a critical gap. We want to know exactly how Gen AI impacts academic performance and student autonomy in Indonesia. And our novelty doesn't just stop at finding the data. We actually designed a prototype application to reinforce these metacognitive skills based on our findings. This brings us to our core research formulation. We asked two specific questions. First, does Gen AI usage negatively impact planning and monitoring, which are the core engines of self-regulated learning? Second, do these planning and monitoring skills positively enhance academic performance, specifically a student's GPA? Our objective was to conduct a rigorous regression and mediation analysis to find the exact indirect effects of Gen AI on GPA, and then use that data to build a practical intervention. When we look at the current literature, the consensus is split. We have a spectrum. On one side, Gen AI offers personalized learning and reduced cognitive load. On the other side, it threatens to encourage academic dishonesty and passive dependency. However, we notice a missing link. Most existing research looks at AI's effect on self-regulated learning as one massive, broad concept. They overlook the specific critical sub-processes of planning, which is setting goals before studying, and monitoring, which is checking your work during studying. We decide to focus our magnifying glass right there. Here are the conceptual framework and hypotheses. Based on this gap and the prevailing anxieties in the academic world, we built our conceptual framework with a clear narrative tension. We initially expected Gen AI to damage cognitive autonomy. Therefore, our first two hypotheses expected the worst. First, Gen AI usage negatively impacts planning, and second, Gen AI usage negatively impacts monitoring. And for the outcomes, we hypothesize third and four are planning and monitoring positively impact academic performance. Let's see how we tested this. To test this hypothesis, we deployed a quantitative descriptive correlational design. We surveyed 158 undergraduate students across Indonesian universities using certified random sampling. Our strict inclusion criteria required them to be active Gen AI users, using AI at least weekly for academics. Looking at our respondent profile, these are active users with a high Gen AI usage mean of 6.77 out of 10. They also boast a moderately high academic performance with an GPA equivalent of 5.01 out of 8 on our scale. Before running the main analysis, we subjected our data to rigorous testing. Confirmatory factor analysis proved our instruments were highly valid, and Cron-based alpha confirmed high reliability. Furthermore, our model perfectly passed all classical assumption tests: normality, multicollinearity, heteroscedasticity, and autocorrelation. In short, our statistical model was robust, unbiased, and primed for truth testing. And here's the truth that emerged from the data. This is the paradigm shift of our study. The empirical data completely contradicted the cognitive atrophy hypothesis. We had to reject hypothesis 1 and 2. Instead of a negative impact, we found that Gen AI usage has a strong, at least significant positive effect on both planning, which is 0.5544, and monitoring, which is 5662. What does this mean? It means AI does not replace standard cognitive skills. Instead, Gen AI acts as a cognitive co-pilot, engaging with AI actually forces students to set clearer goals and constantly scrutinize and fact-check the AI's outputs. It elevates their metacognitive tendencies rather than destroying them. When we look at the pathway to academic performance, we found something fascinating. The direct effect of simply using Gen AI on students' GPA is insignificant, which is 0.0461. Using AI alone doesn't make you get better grades. The GPA boost is entirely mediated by self-regulated learning. And between planning and monitoring, monitoring emerged as the dominant mediator, which is 0.7042 on GPA. The key takeaway is this. Students who actively interrogate, cross-reference, and monitor the AI's outputs are the ones who see the highest academic gains. Total indirect effect was a strong 0.7022. As researchers, we did not want just leave this as a theory, because monitoring is the strongest predictor of academic success. We asked how can we force students to monitor better. We designed an architecture called the Gen AI Reflection Companion. Unlike standard ChatGPT, which just gives you answers, our prototype uses Google Gemini 2.5 Flash to act as a metacognitive mirror. It asks the student which part of this assignment were your ideas and which were generated by AI. Crucially, it features a virtual monitoring journal. It automatically logs every interaction, the students' validation methods, and their difficulty points. This transitions Gen AI from a shortcut machine into a guided reflection tool, establishing a longitudinal record of their critical thinking. To bring this to a conclusion, our research provides three clear policy directives. First, for faculty, redesign your assignment to grade the process of AI interaction and critical evaluation, not just the final essay. Second, for institution, shift your focus from engineering to AI literacy, teach students self-regulated learning. And third, for system design, integrate mandatory monitoring journals into university LMS platforms to create qualitative records of student metacognition. The core truth of our research is this. To unlock student autonomy in higher education, we must stop policing Gen AI access and start engineering metacognitive engagement. Of course, we acknowledge our study's limitation. We relied on a cross-sectional design and self-reported usage data, which can introduce social desirability bias. To deter around these roadblocks, future frameworks must adopt a mixed method approach, combining surveys with focus groups and integrate objective institutional data, such as verified LMS log records, to triangulate these findings. Generative AI does not inherently erode autonomy. When structured correctly, it is one of the most powerful instruments we have ever seen for enhancing critical thought and academic independence. Thank you very much for your time and attention today. I would now be delighted to open the floor to any question, suggestion, or discussion.